We're all drawn back to the reconciliation thing, I think, because nothing's really changed. You know, we've been singing about this stuff since in the 80s, and we've had various things have happened. The Sorry thing with Kevin Rudd was one. We've had, you know, Kathy Freeman, and we've had all the great music that's come from the artists like Christine Anu, and you know, we've got the new crop of rappers and hip hop in that area. You know, Jess Mauboy, a lot of the collaborators that have come through, Alice Skye, doing wonderful things musically, but in the political area, I'm sorry, it's just not good enough. You know, nothing's changed, and everything's, you know, we have to go on and sing about this stuff. I mean, I get a bit angry thinking about it, but the thing is that it's the job of artists to do that, you know. And our thing happens to be more, you know, in that end of things. So, of course, we're going to be talking about things if things haven't really changed. I mean, you think about Kumanjai Walker being shot by a policeman in Yuendamu as late as last year. You talk about Rio Tinto blowing up, you know, sacred artworks and sacred objects as recently as this year. And there's still lip service being paid. You know, there's a sense that really people really don't know still what's going on. There was an invasion here, you know, and no one said sorry. There's no treaty yet, which is appalling, absolutely appalling, where other countries have treaties. The governments, especially the Liberal governments, are just hell-bent on serving the mining interests of the mining industry, all their mates, big end of town. People are still living in poverty. There's suicide. There's high mortality rates. There's misunderstanding. You know, people like, you know, Murdoch and the Telegraph, and just raving on about nonsense about it all. Just making up lies about it. Nothing's changed. So, you know, what are you going to do? You know, we're going to keep going on about it. You know, that's what Midnight Oil does. And whether you agree with it or not, well, you know, depends what newspaper you read, I suppose. But I think that's our job, you know, especially when things haven't really been sorted out, you know. I think it's, you know, it's just really sad. And so what's been good about this, though, it's been a positive thing because we've had the collaboration with First Nations people and great artists with great things to say, and they've been wonderful coming on board, and we've listened and learnt from that experience. The collaborators came in and they'd often have problems with a few of the words. We go, yeah, change it, you know, to whatever you're comfortable with. Things like in the song called Change the Date, where there's a line which was when the white fellas came, you know, smash this nation to build their own. Well, it was nations, because there was over 300 different Aboriginal nations in existence when the first invasion came. And often they'd improvise things, and we'd say, yeah, that's great, let's use that, we'll keep that, because that just comes from the heart. And so a lot of it was listening to what they could sing and what they couldn't sing. If it wasn't their country, they couldn't really sing or talk about it. We learned a lot, you know. It was a lovely collaboration because we sort of came up from beneath. We weren't coming over the top with some sort of, you know, this I believe stuff. It was sort of like, let's open these songs up to people and bring them in. So it was a great process and a really positive thing. So despite all the negative things in the world and what's happened with this stuff in the political arena, this has been one of the most wonderful experiences we've ever had, I think.
Now we have this incredible document which was presented to the Turnbull government by Noel Pearson and Professor Megan Davis and Pat Anderson on behalf of First Nations all around the country. And it was almost immediately thrown in the too hard basket, which seems extraordinary because, you know, we're certain that in 10, 15, 20 years, every schoolboy, schoolgirl in this country will be able to recite lines from this incredible foundation document. So fast forward to 2020 and the amazing Uluru Statement from the Heart is still languishing in some kind of no man's land. And there's some talk of adding the voice to Parliament, but The original idea behind the Statement from the Heart, of course, was to enshrine it in the Australian Constitution, which is where it should be. And for my own part, I don't think non-Indigenous Australians can move forward until we've enshrined the Uluru Statement from the Heart in the Australian Constitution. It's been too long coming. It's 2020 and it's time. It's unfinished business which need be finished.
I think the band's immersion in the Indigenous history of Australia from pretty early on, particularly in the mid-80s when we went out into the desert on a tour that's pretty big in our folklore, the Blackfella Whitefella tour with Warumpi Band, and saw communities and living culture of First Nations people, it left such an imprint on us, both individually in the way in which we thought about things and the sort of songs that people were bringing forward, but also as a band generally. And that impact really intensified over time as we saw the failure of modern Australia, and particularly some political leadership, to actually address the historical wrongs that had happened to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people when Cook and the British came to the country and invaded 250 years ago. So it was inevitable that some of that subject matter might spill out into songs. As it turned out, when the songs came onto the table, we had quite a few that were specifically directed or around that topic, either new ones or old ones, but all focused on that issue. And that's very much in keeping with what Midnight Oil's done in the past, and try to pick up issues and run with them, and feel like we've had enough experience and strong relationships with people to be able to do it with conviction. But then, of course, most importantly, inviting other artists, First Nation artists, to come and join us and to collaborate with them in making something which really speaks to what the future of Australia can be like if we're unified, but also at a really deep level is just about making the music work as well as it can.